after several months of healing that I had the anticipatory anxiety going down my first hill, and then once halfway down it went away. And I've been able to ride ever since. So it's the kind of thing that you can do in the moment. And it's very wise to do it in the moment. Anytime you stub your toe, bang your elbow, hit your head, anything that's a little bit traumatizing to your body or to your mind, release it. Use the process to release it right away. That way your body doesn't store it, doesn't hold it. I don't know how many of you have had experiences in massage where somebody touched something and it was sensitive and you didn't know that there was something there. Sometimes a past injury can be retained in the body even though it's physically healed. There's like a body memory in there. So that's sometimes what the trauma process can help release, for example. So NLP, this is sort of the beginning. I mean, you're going to do a lot of more application as you get to the final 3 days of the training. But I want to begin to get your brains tuned into how you can use this a lot in your lives on an everyday kind of basis. So it's really important to me that NLP become applicable to your life. If you only see it as a therapeutic process, you know, that you have to sit down with somebody and do a technique, then you're losing so much of the possibility, so much of what can be done with it. So it's really important to begin to engage your minds on applying it, because that way when you take it with you, you'll really get it into your body, and it'll become part of who you are. Okay? So if you have any questions as we go along about application, definitely ask them. How might I apply this? How might I do that technique in the world? Where is this important? When do I use it? Okay? Another personal story where NLP was quite relevant was in 1992, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a rare form of angiosarcoma, which is a blood vessel cancer inside my bone in my ankle and foot area. And I began the process of healing. And so, of course, I went to the traditional Western doctors and I got their advice, and they said, well, you have two choices, which is quite limited in my opinion. You can have radiation, which some of you are familiar with. Yeah, most people know what radiation is. Really intense X-rays. And the second was amputation. Not a great choice, not a great option. So I started exploring alternative healing while they were sort of preparing to do radiation. Because of the two, that one sounded better to me. Burn the heck out of your foot rather than cut it off. I like that idea better. So I went into really taking NLP and exploring possibilities. Really looking at my beliefs and how was I holding things, so that I could begin to explore how to expand the possibility for healing and what healing really was. And where could I go? What kind of help could I get? Because I remember I had a belief that said, I have to do this myself. And when I discovered that belief, I could see how it was operating in my life, because I really didn't know. It was unconscious to me. And I didn't realize that I was resisting a lot of assistance because I thought I had to do it myself. You know, it was like some kind of badge of honor. You know, if somebody else helps me with this, then I didn't really do it. And then what does it really mean? You know? Does that make sense to any of you? Yeah. So I went, well, there's a lot of people out there that know a lot more about this than I do. And even if they do help me, it's not them that's doing the healing. They're still outside of me. I'm the only one that can actually do it. I'm the only one that can really discover my own beliefs and feel how they operate in my life. And I'm the only one that can make the moves and the choices, decide what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. I'm the only one that can give my attention to it. I'm the only one that can bring my energy to it. I'm the one that has to decide how I'm going to engage in this process. And so NLP really helped me to be able to think things through like that, to explore possibilities. And of course, I was also well connected in the community already. And so I got lots of great trainers working with me and helping me to explore it. I worked with Robert Dilts, and I worked with John McWhirter, who's over in Scotland, and I worked with Connie Ray Andreas and a number of other people. I did hypnosis and really explored what I call sort of the different levels of healing. The energetic level, what's going on in your body energetically. So like using acupuncture and things like that. And then I explored the spiritual aspects. What was my connection with faith or something bigger than myself? Could I get connected with something like that to help me with the healing? I explored, of course, the physical. What decisions am I going to make about my body? Am I going to, do macrobiotic diets? Am I going to do herbal treatments? Am I going to do, chemotherapy? What am I going to do physically? And then I had to make decisions about what was going on mentally and emotionally, dealing with fear and dealing with frustration and confusion and procrastination and motivation and all these different aspects. And so the NLP really helped carry me through that whole aspect of it. It's a very powerful experience. It took me about 5 years to resolve it. And of course, this is my real leg. I never had to do the amputation, which the doctors maintained was the way to go. And
what about the radiation? Did you have the radiation?
I did do the radiation, and after 1993, they said that the cancer had gone away. And then in 1994, they said it was back, and that it had spread higher up in my leg. And so then there was time to, since the radiation hadn't worked, and that's when I chose to go completely alternative. And I did many strange things. What's that?
Herbal medicine or something else?
I did herbal, yeah, I did lots of things. I did kombucha mushrooms and essiac tea and all kinds of herbal remedies to build the immune system, and changed my diet, and I didn't drink for a year and a half, and did homeopathy and lots of different things. Yeah. So there's a big world out there. There's lots of possibility. And the other important thing about dealing with healing, because it's such a significant issue, is thought viruses. Have you heard of that term before? It's a Robert Dilts term. A thought virus is when a doctor says, you're going to this is going to happen. You have 9 months to live. This is the way that we need to treat this. One of my doctors said, he was a specialist, he was an orthopedic surgeon, and he said, I'm going to take your case, because it's so unusual, to the top 50 doctors in the country, to the conference, and I'm going to present your case there. I was like, wow, cool, maybe we'll find out something, So he went, and he came back, and he said, all 50 doctors agree. Amputation's the way to go. The top doctors in the country. I'm like, wow, can you imagine? Can you feel that? I mean, if you believe in what doctors have to say, what other way do you have to go? There's no way to go any other direction. So I went, well, what kind of doctors are they? And of course, they're all orthopedic surgeons. And so I went, what do surgeons know how to do? Cut. Maybe that's why they said that. How much other information did they have? What were they going on? Not much else, right? So without NLP, it's sometimes hard to even think that way. To explore, like your meta model. That's what was meta model, right? Who are these people? What do they do? What do we know about them? How do they think? Right? Gives you a lot of information that then you can make a decision from. I mean, too much of the time we just take the information that's given to us and make a decision from it. And you can see how limiting that can be. Yeah? So, some personal history, personal stories. Questions that you have that are in your mind about anything that you've experienced in the training so far? I'd like to take a few minutes just to see if I can help clarify anything. Applications or confusions about any of the processes. Yeah.
Actually, I'm just now reading Frogs and the Princes. And it was said in there something along the lines of, you shouldn't try to use it on yourself because it'll cause confusion or something like that. And I didn't really agree with that, but I was wondering why.
There are some instances where techniques can be used easily on yourself, as I told you about the trauma process. To me, what's most important is understanding the structure of a process. If you understand the structure, then it's a lot easier to run it on yourself. However, sometimes a guide is necessary because there are things that you're not aware of, things that you're not seeing, things that are in your unconscious that somebody else needs to prompt in order for you to help to find them. And so that's where I think they're talking about the possible confusion, is that running a process like a deeper process, trying to find a belief or explore that kind of thing, it really helps to have somebody to bounce that off of. Yeah. And also some of the processes are unconscious in nature. You know, like 6-step reframing is trying to contact an unconscious part. So if you're trying to do that and run the process at the same time, run the technique at the same time, that's where it can get confusing. It's like, where am I? Am I in the part? Am I in myself now? Am I running the process? What am I doing? You know, you have to switch multiple perspectives sometimes, and that's where it can get confusing. Yeah.
I was wondering how you discover your beliefs. I'm not sure what my beliefs are. I know I have a lot of them.
I'm going to hold that for maybe a break. We'll talk about that a little bit. I'd rather not introduce beliefs at this point, because that question is a big one. We spent 2 days exploring beliefs in the master training, and we just barely touched on the subject. So if you got 2 days, we can answer that question.
Not more than that.
You have a lifetime. Anything else that you've had already that you'd like clarification on?
How do you know which techniques you can do it yourself and which techniques you need to have a guide?
I think, again, it's personal choice around that, you know, what you think you can take yourself through. I mean, over the years, I think there were techniques originally that I wouldn't have taken myself through, but now I can. Just because I understand them a little better, I understand myself a little better. So I'd hate to really put any technique in a particular category. I just say, you know, work with it with yourself, and if you run into an impasse, then ask somebody to take you further. But I wouldn't hesitate to try. I wouldn't hesitate to go ahead.
It doesn't do any harm if you try, that doesn't do any harm.
I think it's really hard to make things worse than they are. To me, you have to be pretty talented to make things worse. And that's really an ecology issue, which we're going to get into today. You know, if somebody has ill will towards you, you will put up resistance, you know. And so it's your own patterns of resistance will keep you from making things worse. Now, sometimes people say, well, I got into something and then it felt worse. Well, sometimes when you haven't looked at something and you've sort of put it in the background and you've not wanted to look at it, then it can feel better, even though it's still there, right? Because I'm not attending to it. And so sometimes it can feel like I made it worse by now bringing it into my attention, into my awareness. And going, well, my life's much worse now that I'm looking at this thing. However, it still was there and it still was having an effect on your life. And now you've actually made the move to clean it up, to change it, to make it more efficient, more effective, whatever your desires are around it. So yeah, you know, the calm before the storm sometimes is that denial place, you know, before you deal with something. And then the storm, and then there's calm again after the storm. And usually a more complete calm after the storm. Anything else? Are you beginning to think about taking this back home? Thinking about what you're going to do with it? How many of you are in the